Hello, is this thing on? Oh, looks like it's finally on. Hi there. Welcome to Ask Tim, and I'm your host, Phil Lament. Today, we're going to be taking questions from the audience, so that means you guys watching need to post questions for me in the chat to answer. So, let's get to it. I don't know how this later time is going to work out for you guys. For me, it does work out a little better. I was just wrapping up some things. I had to fix a XT60 connector on a battery and solder a couple other things, and I also took some pictures of the sensor wire that I cannibalized. I think it was on last stream. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, he just snipped it," because someone was asking about the EZABL versus the BL Touch, and one of the big things we're very proud of is our wiring. So if you want to see some close-up shots, I'm actually going to be posting these to the website, but I just posted them in the Livestream's channel on Discord of a side-by-side of the BL Touch wiring harness with our multi-layer shielded cable. So you can see nice, pretty pictures. I tried to do my best with my my Samsung S21 Ultra, and it did pretty good. So, but yeah, you can see the different layers we've got, and we'll be posting on our site. I'm going to use that as some marketing stuff because I think it's really important to highlight. So today's Friday. I do not have an adult beverage. I'm just rocking Ma right now. Surprise! Although I was realizing, like, man, if I have a drink, people are going to think I'm becoming an alcoholic because every stream I have a drink. But now the streams are after 5, so meh. Anyways, I hope everybody's doing well today. As you guys saw at like 2 a.m., 1 a.m., I don't know, it was late. We finalized the Unified 2.3 release. I wanted to get it out before the weekend, and it's out. So that means I can start adding new machines. This release is a huge release because we made a big jump in terms of the Marlin firmware base, and we'll just go over this really quick so it makes sense as to why it took so long, because it took a long time. I was working on this for on and off for about a month, like 27 hours of total time it took. And the reason it took so long is because Marlin 2072 is a build that we were using before, and that build came out, I want to say, about 7 months ago. I'm gonna pull up their release notes on GitHub because they have the releases. And I'll just screen share this too, so you guys can see just how much stuff changed from 2072 to 2091. So we made a couple version jumps because what happened was I started migrating everything over to the 208 release. So if we scroll all the way down here, so we'll see here, Marlin 2072, this was released on October 29th, 2020. So this is the build we were using for ours. Now, if we look up here, and this is, so on Marlin, they have a list of like what's patched, changed, fixed, etc. So you can see there's a little bit of things here on 2072. Now, right above this is 208. Hang on, we'll get there eventually. Hang on, I was not actually expecting this. So there we go, 208. So from 2072 to 208, there's a ton of changes. There's new boards added, there's bug fixes. It's a big jump. And you can see this was released on April 30th. So what is that? So we've got October. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months between these two releases. So we started, when this came out, I started prepping for the update. And then 2081, I believe this is. Yep, 2081 came out on May 15th, so I jumped to that version. And then 2082 came out, so I jumped to that version. And you can see they're doing less. There's less stuff, but the releases are more frequent. So this should be good. This should be good for us in terms of, and by ops, I mean me. I'm literally, if you guys see the firmware work that we do, I'm literally the person that does it. I have our guys that help us test it, but in terms of actually writing the code and making sure the code works, that all 100% falls on me. But you can see here, so we got 2082, and I think this is 209. Yep, 209, that's 25 days ago. And then I figured, well, might as well go to 2091. This came out 12 days ago. So our um, our build is now based on 2091, which is only 12 days old, and it's the latest release for Marlin. And if I go here, you'll see our releases here. And this is 2.3, and that was released 18 hours ago, and 2.27 came out on April 30th. So, and we jumped here from 2.27 to 2.3 because there was actually a 2.28 and 2.29. I incremented the version number internally when I was doing the code merges, and then I said, you know what, let's just round it off, make it 2.3 for the 2091 release. So, and I have it on a couple of my machines. So we have literally test compiled every single board and combination of printer for the firmware. Every single one passes build. This Ender 5 here, I'm doing some other work on it, and this has the old Melzi board in it. This is running 2.3. My Ender 6 is running 2.3. I'm going to actually go around and update most of my machines in my office to the latest build, but it seems very stable. So the only other thing, like the main, obviously there's all the Marlin bugs and feature changes that they did at the Marlin level itself, but in terms of fixing stuff that was present in 2.27, I believe that the only one that I'm aware of that's been fed back to me was on some 2560 boards, when you would have an auto bed leveling probe, it could be a BL Touch or even Easy ABL, it actually wouldn't do what's called Z-Safe homing, where it would home to the center of the bed. I've already got reports from 3 people that had that bug that have told me that the new 2.3 build fixes that, and the workaround before was to use the older Unified 1 because those are 8-bit boards, but it appears to be whatever changes they made in Marlin also resolved that obscure bug with the Z-Safe homing now working on certain configurations and boards. So anyways, but yeah, so I think that's about it. I don't really have too much. Oh, there's actually it's a lot of new software. Actually, we have a new image out for the Easy Pies. This is my testing one. This is literally just used. It sits on my desk, and it's a Pi I use for testing builds. We actually reached out to Gina from Octoprint, and she built us some custom in-house scripts that generate the image, so it's actually a clean build. Our process before was, setting Octoprint up, getting everything fine-tuned, getting all the plugins loaded, get everything pre-set up, and then we take an image of the card, shrink it down, and then we put it onto a master SD card, and that would go into an imager. The only problem with that is if people were idiots and didn't listen to the warnings about don't port forward, the default API key for the machine or for those images would all be the same. So in theory, if somebody had access to that and they knew they were using an Easy Pi image, they could technically control the machine with that API. Now with this new process, just because it's a clean build, we're not actually booting it until we put it into the Pi that it's going to now live in. Each one now will have a unique ID, and it's a different process. So we paid Gina a decent amount of money to do the work for us. It will also save me a lot of time for building images and updating it, because I can actually run a script now and it'll pull down all the latest plugin releases. So if I know there's a ton of plugin releases out there that need to be updated, I can easily rebuild the image, flash it to an SD card, make sure it boots, and then update our master card in our imager. So and if you have our Easy Pi and you want to update to the latest image, it's available on our website for free. Even if you don't have our kit, you can use it on your Raspberry Pi 3B, 3B Plus, or 4. Just if you're not one of our customers that's using our image, you do not get technical support unless you have an Easy Pi kit with a warranty active on it. So, yeah, so a lot of software updates. One more update, because people keep asking about the Flex plates. When will the Easy Flex be back? Well, I talked to FedEx. They finally released our shipment. I hate the shipping carriers. They held up our entire order of plates, literally almost a ton of plates. We spent almost $10,000 to ship this order. I'm not even joking. We're $9,500 to ship this big order. It's a very large order. And they held up the shipment for days because the invoice, there was a 15-cent error on the total. So when my guy who makes the plates for us made the invoice that goes with the thing, so they know the value, so they know how much to bend us over the table and screw us in the rear for import duties, he fat fingered and miscalculated by 15 cents. So he had all the items listed and the total value for those items, and the overall total was 15 cents off. So they held up the plates for 3 days because of a 15-cent error. So yeah, that was fun. But they'll be here Monday is what they're telling me. And they better be here, because if they aren't, I'm going to ask for a partial refund because of how much freaking shipping costs. To give you guys an idea, a order like this shipped via air, because we're shipping this air, not sea, because sea is backed up for months. That size order would normally cost us about $4,000 to ship a year ago, and now it's over $9,500. So there will be a slight increase on the plate prices. We're talking a couple bucks per plate, but we're literally getting rammed in the rear by these shipping carriers because they know everything's in high demand, and I have to have inventory. So, but they'll be here Monday, and we're still cheaper than Wham Bam. They come out of the same factory. So, but we'll have them on Monday. And I think that's all the updates I have for you guys. I see Vincent Robles said he's installed Unified 2.3 on the Ender 6 during his morning coffee, rocking it all day. I got it on mine too. I do test the firmware on actual machines before we send it out. So, there was one other thing. Oh, the Easy Firmware site, because the new build of Marlin is so different and updated compared to the old one. We had a brief period since like 1 a.m. I think I fixed it around like 2 p.m. today. The Platform.io version on our Easy Firmware server that does the compiles, it was out of date, so it wasn't compiling firmware, but it's all back up and running. Went in there, updated the Platform.io files, and we're back in business. So I saw someone asking about the EasyBoard V2. We are shooting for mid-August. The board is done, as in it's working. Software's working, hardware's working, all the thermals are great. I just got to get some photos of the retail boards. The retail boards are being made. We had a couple small revisions from the prototypes that we had to do, so we're going to get a couple of the retail boards made. We're getting those pushed through. I should have those in a couple of weeks so I can start getting photos done, get documentation done. But we are not posting any details on what's new and improved with the board. There's a lot of new stuff on it. There's a lot of new features on it. But last time we, posted details on a product before we physically had it ready to ship, the overseas companies tried to knock it off. So we're playing things, or I think the term is playing your hand close to your chest. So we will post full details, and I will have all those details ready to go as soon as we get them in, which should be around mid-August, and the price point's going to stay the same. We originally were going to be able to target a lower price point, but thanks to all this inflation and parts costs going up, we have to keep the same price, and we're actually going to be making less than our old board. But I don't want to push the price up any higher than it already is. So anyways, I think that's about it. I was hoping that you guys would post some questions in chat while I'm sitting here rambling. But I don't see too many questions. You guys need to post questions in chat. So I'm going to jump in to the chat here and see. It looks like the chat is synced up on my main window here, so I don't have to worry about that. And TJ, I think you got the first question on the last stream too. And TJ is asking, he said, my EasyFlex came in today. I will not put on glass again, but it is attached to the hotbed. Should I remove the glass for less thermal mass to heat it up? So the short answer is, if your glass plate can detach easily, meaning you can just take it off or undo some little clips and take it off, you should take the glass off, put the magnet directly on your aluminum bed. There are some beds where the glass is actually bonded to the aluminum plate. If your glass is bonded to the aluminum plate, do not try to remove it. You're going to make a mess and screw things up. For example, my artillery AL4 machine, also dubbed as the only Easy 300 prototype we ever built, I still use it. That has a thin aluminum plate with a glass plate bonded to it. Do not try to remove it. If yours is one where it's bonded to the aluminum bed, or it's just a glass bed like some of the TiVo machines or the Sidewinders, then just put the magnet right on top of the glass. But if you can remove the glass easily, take it off. If not, just put it right on top. So 3D Printwave, I like that name. I don't know if you kind of noticed the purple and the pink. Actually, let me get more retro wave here going. I pull up my I gotta load up my little Home Assistant panel here. Let's see. I got my printer LEDs. We're gonna make those blue, and then we're gonna make the rep box like that pink. There we go. I like that. So. His first time watching, been binging the streams over the past few weeks. Looking forward to it. I like listening to stuff like this type of content where it's more longer form and talking, and it's a live stream, especially if I'm working. I'll usually have it up on another monitor. There's a couple of other YouTubers and other content creators I watch, and I'll have them on while I'm working, just for kind of background noise and just kind of keep an ear out if there's anything that interests me. Let's see, Derek, I saw your super chats. I appreciate it. So I am going to, if you guys do super chat, I will read your question above everybody else. So I'm going to do that. And Derek says, do I need to recalibrate the EasyABL when you change the print surface? The answer is typically no. Especially with the Pro sensor. The older sensors were a little more finicky in terms of changing the print surface, but the only thing I would say is if you're going from like a metal to a metal surface, like you're going flex plate to flex plate, you're probably fine. If you're going flex plate to glass, it might change the detection distance just by a hair, but not enough that anything where a Z offset would do. So I would say check, like move your nozzle down, put your new surface underneath and see it. As long as the sensor triggers before the nozzle touches the bed, you're fine. So any sort of changes between surfaces, just handle it with your Z offset or the baby stepping, or if you're using our firmware, Z offset and baby stepping are the same thing. So, and I saw one other one. Derek, what's better, LPC or STM32? They're both good chips. They're just different brands. They're all ARM chips. The difference is that you really want to look out for is there's different like levels of chips and what functions. Like there's some chips that have like floating point calculations built in. Floating point calculations instructions, I think would be the proper term, built in, so they're a little more efficient at doing math processing, and there's some that don't have it. There's some that have onboard EEPROM, and there's some that don't. But NXP is the brand that makes LPC. We use the LPC 1769 on our EasyBoard V1. We are going with a different CPU on the EasyBoard V2 just due to part availability. But we're still using genuine name brand parts. You won't be seeing, what was that brand, that GD brand that we saw in the Vox Lab Aquila? We will not be using knockoff processors on our boards. So, and before anybody asks, since we're talking about processors, we want to do an EasyBoard Pro, which will be a 5-driver board with some other extra features added on as well. We already have the feature set laid out. The problem right now is we cannot get the processor. So the processor we're using on the new V2 has multiple package sizes that have different amounts of I/O pins on them. So on the regular EasyBoard, we're using the smaller package because we don't need as many I/O pins, but the Pro, we want to use the larger one so we can drive more drivers, more hot end outputs, more thermistor inputs, that kind of stuff. But the problem is we can't get those processors. So we're only going to be running the regular EasyBoard until part availability is actually available. Because right now we're showing lead times of almost a year, which I think are just bullshit numbers they put in to be like, I don't know when we're going to get them. But we hedged our bets and a couple months bought a bunch of processors that we're using for the V2 before we even had any software done, and the hardware was just barely done because we wanted to make sure we had processors. So the only reason we're able to actually run boards for the new board is because we bought chips months ago and we've been sitting on them. So I'm going to jump back into the normal question queue and see who else is there. And I do have the giveaway open, and the giveaway will be a thing, and everybody seemed pretty excited, especially now that we're carrying filament. We're going to have an option of we'll select a printer, in right around the $200, $250 point tops, unless I have one specifically in mind, or you can opt for a $200 TH30 gift card. So that's what we're going to be doing going forward here, because I don't want to be giving away Ender 3s every month. I love the Ender 3, but it gets a little old, because we're not sponsored by Creality. I need my caffeine today. I was up at 6:30. So, All right, chat just jumped. And I think I was looking at Nemo Griff. He's saying that he had something weird with Unified 2 on the Ender 3v2 with the stock shitty screen. I stopped the print at home decks and went up on Z, then it resumed on its own at the higher Z height. Have you had that happen before? So there has been a history of that screen doing weird stuff with stepper movements. But you're saying it resumed on its own. Now, I have had where if I stop a print that's getting its print sent over USB, so like I'm running it off Octoprint, if I stop the print on the printer and don't stop it in Octoprint, the printer will then keep going after it goes through the stop process. So usually when you hit stop print, it's going to home X, Y, and Z and just sit there. Well, if Octoprint's still sending commands, it's just going to go back and start doing those commands. If you're printing on the SD, that's a whole other thing that I haven't seen happen, but that screen is known to cause weird bugs. I know one of the things where if you moved in access on it, it would back the filament out for some reason. That should also be fixed. I totally forgot about this little weird glitch with that screen. That should also be fixed in our new Unified 2.3 because it's supposedly fixed in the new Marlin build that we're basing ours on. So... oh my god, my nose is driving me nuts. Hang on, I gotta mute this and... hang on, oh. Oh, that was the worst. So, anyways, also, shameless plug, th3dstore.com. We have these hats. We have a few left. We got them all in. We did a run of 100 of them, and that's it. We're not doing any more for a while. Probably never. I think the next one we'll do, if these go well, is we'll do the dad hat, which you guys have seen me wear before. It's the gray one. This is my favorite one. I just like the snapback and how it looks. So, but occasionally I'll wear the dad hat if I don't want to look as douchey. So, got some on my mustache. Let's see. Man, we're just at the intro comments still right now. David Johnson got 2 rolls of mystery rolls from Coax. I love their mystery rolls. The problem is as soon as they stock them, they go out of stock. But I've printed like 4 or 5 of theirs, and the colors are always cool. And the mystery rolls from Coax, which we carry Coax filament, we don't carry their mystery rolls because they don't usually make a ton of them. So they just sell them directly on their site. But we carry Coax filament as well. The mystery rolls are when they're transitioning the line from one color to another. That's what's extruded, so they spool it like regular filament. So the same quality PLA, it's the same tolerances and everything. It's just the color will shift as it goes from the old color to the new one. So you end up getting colors that are kind of translucent and look pretty cool. So, Fred Transactions, did I lower the brightness on my new TH3 light? It looks better. So I lowered the brightness. I'm feeding it like 9 volts with a step down. So 12 volts in, then it hits a step down, goes to 9. But I also printed a new frame in Coax Stealth Gray PET G. So the white was blowing out from the light too much. And you can see there the darker color kind of absorbs it. So you can actually tell that it's our logo. And I actually printed a Google Home Mini ceiling mount out of their PET G as well on Bertha, and I'm going to be putting that up in the basement tonight. And their PET G prints really good, so I'm going to have to order some of that and get that into our shop. I also gave our guy Sean in the shop, who actually prints a lot more fun stuff than I do. He's got quite a few printers at home. I gave him a couple rolls of the PET G because I knew he'd have more time to test it out and give me his honest feedback because he prints a lot of PET G from different companies. And he's been very happy with it. So we're going to be getting their PET G into our shop as well as reordering other ones because we're out of stock on a few colors already. So, Dave Johnson, have you tried 400 by 400 for the Ender Max from Ender Extender? I have not. I don't have any other stuff. So the guy who runs the Ender Extender stuff, his name's Mark. We actually wholesale some parts to him. So, but he's a good guy. I have no reason to do the Ender Extender. I think it's a cool product, and it seems like he does a good job of like, here's everything you need to make it bigger. So, but I haven't done it. I have no use for it. I've got, Bertha up there is actually printing some, drone racegate parts for a guy on the, I always forget the name of the Discord server, but I posted a picture of the corner brackets where you put two 1-inch PVCs in, and they're like hinged. Bot Grinder Discord, and he was like, "Oh, those are cool. I wish I had a printer." I was like, "If you want to toss me a couple bucks for shipping, I'll send you a bunch because I've got so much random filament in here. I'll hook the guy up with some parts." So, and Bertha makes some really strong parts. Let's see. So Nicholas is asking regarding the 422 silent board from Creality and Stubber VRS. The value seems way wrong, and the motors were hot to touch. Any suggestions? So in our help center, which is support.th3dstudio.com, we have the VRFs that Creality gave us that the 422 and the 427 board should use. Now, if for some reason those are running too hot, where you like, and by too hot is if you put your finger on it, you're like, that's too hot. Basically, if they're over like 50, 60 C, you probably need to lower your VREF. I'm just pulling I cannot type and talk at the same time. If you guys haven't figured that out, I am grabbing the help center link for Nicholas. But check that out. So those are the recommended VREFs from Creality. Those are just I would take those as a starting point, run a print, see how hot they are. If they're running too warm, just lower it down in like 0.1 volt increments. And just keep this in mind. If you having too low a VREF means you lose step. Having too high a VREF means things overheat. Usually your drivers will overheat before your motors. Stepper motors, even the cheap ones that come on these printers, can usually handle in excess of 100 C or higher. But keep that in mind. If you set it too low, you could introduce a whole nother set of problems other than your motor's just running warm. So, Spot On's asking, is the new release fix the bug that affected some of the Ender 5 Pluses? Yeah, that was the bug, the homing bug. I have confirmation, like I said, from 3 other people that it did fix it. Updating to the new Marlin base did fix that. So, Henry's asking about the overall length or overall length dimension of the Creality / Kraken style heat break you fit, trying to fit it on another China printer. I do not have one of those in my office. I don't think. Let me check my parts drawer. I do have my calipers. Primo, you need to move. You need to move. 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 If I have one, it's going to be in this bin of parts. I don't see one. I do know it's slightly shorter than Creality's stock PTFE heat break. But if you have a grub screw, so like, there's obviously the picture. I want to say it's like 5 millimeters shorter than the stock heat break. And the stock heat break is like 26, 27. I'm going to call it 27. We're going to call it 27. If someone else was here, I would run out to the shop and get it, or have them run out to the shop. But I am the only one here, and I have both the dogs in here with me. So I am going to, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a task, because I thought we had the picture of that on the site, on the product page. Now I'm wondering, the titanium heat break. I swear I had that on there. Maybe I don't. Now, I'm going to make myself a task. So we use Microsoft Teams. I'm going to make myself a task to take measurements and put them on the product page. So take of TI Creality heat break and put on product page. So I just need to put that Tim's to-do list. Come on. Tim's to-do list. Add that. Normal. Okay. All right. So we'll have that soon, unless Samantha gets home. But anyways, 3D Printwave said he's been using the stock Ender 5 bed flipped to the glass side and been using bed weld. Haven't heard of bed weld. I mean, there's so many different bed adhesion things out there. I'm gonna Google it. Bed weld. Oh, layer near. I have heard of this. I've never used it though. I use for any sort of bed adhesion, we use Vision Miner. That's why we sell it. We've been using it for longer than we've been selling it. Results have been great. I want to switch your Easy Flex textured or smooth PEI. Discuss. That's up to you, man. The textured and the smooth both perform about the same. We have textured on most of our print farm machines only because when we print the LCD housings, we want them face down to get that textured look. Now, before we started doing LCD housings, we had basically smooth on everything. I've got a mixture of both here in my office. I personally like the textured look, but there are some parts where I like the smooth look. So it's really up to you. Do you want kind of a smooth matte finish? Like, you're not going to get a glass finish with the smooth. You're going to get kind of a matte finish where there's a little bit of reflection. Whereas the textured's got that, you know, knurled look. Like if you look at our LCD housing pictures, like for the Ender 6, that's a more recent one where those pictures would have shown the textured look. That's the kind of look you get on it. Let me see here. LCD and LCD parts. And let's screen share. So basically, like, actually, I think this would be a good comparison. So like some of these product photos are older, but we started printing everything if it's an LCD on the textured surface. So like you can see here on this one, this was printed face down. You can see it's kind of a smooth. Let's see if there's a better photo of it. Wait. So it's kind of a smooth look. That's the kind of finish you get on the smooth plate. You might be able to see a little bit better here. See, it's kind of a smooth. It's not glossy, but it's not, you know, super dull. This product photo here also, this was printed on a smooth plate. Now, if you look at the Ender 6 housing, this was printed on the textured plate. You can see that here. Probably could also see it as well here. So this is a better photo of it. The one that's actually on the print apart product page was a prototype I made, so there was like little gaps. But this is how they look if your Z height is correct. It's got this nice little knurled, like, I don't know if I'd call it knurled, but it's a textured surface. So I like how it looks on the LCDs. It makes it look more finished, I think. So, but it's really up to you. So what kind of preference you want on your parts. So yeah. Let's see. Superconductor, I'm rewiring both my Corelli printers. What's the recommended way to manage / secure cables? Why is my nose bothering me? Where did I was like, hang on one second. Driving me nuts. Anyways, he's rewiring his printers. / What's the recommended way to manage / secure the cables? It's kind of vague, but in general, I use a lot of zip ties. If I'm getting rid of like that like mesh wrap, I'll usually do the spiral stuff. Everybody's got their preference for cable management. Some people like the split loom. Some people like the braided mesh. Some people like the spiral stuff. I'll tell you why I like the spiral stuff over any of those. It's because the spiral stuff, you can get cables out at any point without having to cut the loom. Like the mesh stuff is nice if you just one continuous run, things come out one end and the other end. On certain machines, you might have, you know, like a filament sensor cable exiting on that same bundle of cables, and then a motor and an end stop. And the spiral wrap I like because you can just pull one of those wires out and then keep wrapping, and then you get one little wire sticking out. That's my thing. And one thing I will say is when you're rewiring stuff, and let me turn this camera on because this is something not many people think about, but even guys here have done it, and it's easy to forget. I've built so many machines that it's just one of the things I do when I'm working on a printer. But you want to make sure when you're cable managing and you're doing this stuff that you are accounting for your maximum travel on the machine, because you could get to a point where I guess, is this exposure? Oh, this is definitely set at a fixed exposure. Hang on. Let's put that back in auto. So when you guys are doing cable management, make sure that you're actually checking to make sure if your printer is at the maximum position. So in this printer, this is the furthest distance this will ever be from where the cables are routed from. Make sure you check this before you secure everything. And if you see here, I'm using the Bowden tube as my cable support, and I've got zip ties a couple inches. And move it around and make sure that everything works in all the positions you're going to be using it in. So, like, I had one of the guys, he was working on this, and he got all the wiring done. This had to have a new heater block, new thermistor and heater put in. The other one was just so caked up. This was from our print farm, so it was used heavily, and then the hot end started leaking. But anyways, I digress. So we replaced the heater and thermistor, and he had the wires just too short on the heater, so he had to then extend the heater wires so we could actually have full travel on this. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. And also same thing with the Bowden tube. Make sure you leave some slack. You see how this is not, pulled down like this. It's got a nice bend here, and I'm actually following the tube's natural bend that it wants to bend. So if I flip this up, it's going to want to go into a U this way. So keep that in mind when you're routing all your stuff. Just little stuff like that will save you a lot of headaches and give you a overall cleaner build to work with. And zip ties are your friend. Just, if you need some zip ties, just ask someone with a Honda Civic. I'm sure they have some. Nightcrawler's asking, do you have to use the bootloader every time you update the firmware? Do you have to, use the boot? You technically are using the bootloader. I'm assuming you mean do you have to flash the bootloader? The answer is no. Once the bootloader's on the board, you can update. Like this one, this had Unified 1 on it. That's how long this printer's been in service. I'm pretty sure this is the first Ender 5 I got because it has a Meanwell in its stock. And this had Unified 1 on it, and I was able to update it to 2.3. No problem. So typically when you burn the bootloader, it's on the processor unless you have some weird firmware that's going to overwrite it. You don't have to reflash it. So BW Electronics says, I have an Ender 3 V2. If I go to a flexible bed, can I attach it to the current bed, or do I have to change the base? I'm assuming you're talking about our Easy Flex. I believe the Ender 3 V2 comes with the like floppy dick. I call it the floppy dick because that's what it's like. If you take their stock bed and wiggle it back and forth, that's what it reminds me of. But they're a little magnetic sheet. The answer is no. Do not use our plates or really anyone else's plates with the stock magnet. The reason is the stock magnet, one, is weak as to begin with. That's my my motion sensor killing my lights, but we'll bring them back. Anyways, they're not strong, and they get even weaker at temps as low as 60C. So if you're going to be going with a flex plate system, whether it's our Easy Flex or it's someone else's, buy their magnet, especially if it's a high temperature magnet. Our magnets are high temperature. They're good up to 140C for sustained use. So Spot-on's asking about thoughts on Solval printers. He ordered an SVO4 IDEX. Oh, you pre-ordered, you poor bastard. I do not pre-order printers. I can't remember the last time I pre-ordered a machine. Solval in general is a pretty good company. With EasyBoard V2 work on an IDEX printer? No, it probably is not going to have enough motor outputs. IDEX usually need multiple extruder and multiple X motor outputs. So depending on the design of the IDEX. Usually IDEX are a Cartesian. So you usually have two X motors, one for each carriage. So the EasyBoard V2 would not work for you. So as much as I would love for us to come out with like just a balls to the wall, like just a balls to the wall board with tons of outputs on it and tons of features, the reality is the majority of our customers are never going to use something like that, and it would be so cost prohibitive and not even worth trying to come to market with that. Especially when you got, boards like the MKS S-Gen L, usually people are like using those for custom builds, and usually custom builds, you need a ton of different stuff, whereas your more standard machines just need 4 drivers, a hot end, and a bed output. I'd like to do it, but especially right now with how expensive silicon is, not something I'm doing. Sorry, I'm just reading here. M. Povenbar is asking about Alexa working local. I don't use the Amazon Alexa stuff, but there is a firmware for the Easy Plugs on the GitHub for the Easy Plugs that has the, I think it's Wemo. They emulate a Wemo outlet. You would basically just flash that onto the plug. You flash the minimal firmware first through the web interface, and then you flash the full version with the Wemo emulation. And I'm told by customers who have our plugs with the Amazon Spy devices that they work with that emulation mode on. So meaning the Echoes can talk directly to the plugs. So my thing here is if you're using Home Assistant, and we always seem to touch on some home automation stuff, which is great because we're kind of moving into that market a little bit, just inching slowly product by product. My whole thing with my whole methodology with my home automation stuff is everything talks to Home Assistant. I don't buy a product that's a smart home product if it can't talk directly to Home Assistant. And directly means on my local network. I'm not talking about a cloud integration where Home Assistant's talking to another company's server, and if I need to send a request from Home Assistant, it goes from Home Assistant to that company's server, then back to the device that's on my network. Home Assistant is my central point of contact for all my smart home devices, my IP devices, my Z-Wave devices, all my other random integrations that I have, whether it's DIY devices or stuff I bought off the shelf, stuff that I flash with Tasmota, everything talks to Home Assistant. And then like I use Google Home for my voice assistant. Google Home talks to Home Assistant through their Nabu-Casa integration, and that integration is $5 a month. But I have done the manual Google integration setup, and it is a pain in the ass. It's absolutely worth the $5 a month, and that money that you're spending on the Nabu-Casa subscription goes towards the development of Home Assistant. And I absolutely believe Home Assistant is worth $5 a month. Seeing as I literally use it every single day. My wife uses it literally every single day. The automations save me time. They save me money, just on power savings and stuff. So just think about how you're going to structure your home automation stuff. I really wish when I did all the home automation stuff, I had started with everything talking to Home Assistant. But at some point, I had some that talked through their app from the manufacturer, and I had some that talked through Home Assistant. And it's just easier to have, if it works with Home Assistant, it's a product I'll buy or build. Trail features, EasyBoard V2 and Clipper. I have no idea. I do have a guy. We're never, just to be clear, we're probably never going to officially support Clipper on our boards. Any of the Clipper support, like there is a Clipper setup file for the EasyBoard V1 in the official Clipper repo, and that was a joint effort by a bunch of guys on our Discord server. And there is one of those guys I am in contact with, and I'm going to be sending him out a retail board to test, but TH3D and our tech support will never support, or let me rephrase that, probably never support Clipper, just because it's more of a niche firmware. It's very complicated, and it's more for the power user and people that have nothing but time to burn. So, especially like me personally, I don't even use Clipper. Marlon does everything I need it to do. So we will not be officially supporting it, but if one of these community guys gets it running, I don't see why they couldn't get it running. The CPU we're using is similar enough to the other ones that are out there. I think they will be able to get it going on there. But we're not going to be like, oh yeah, we'll support Clipper and help you set it up and everything. Dear God, no. It's such a mess. Clipper is very much a beta software. It's cool, but very, very beta. All right. See, I'm doing better this stream because I started drinking the Maw before I started streaming. Mr. Lightspeed, his LSD 3D is in the chat. Show the back of the hat. There we go. Just blue with little snaps. It's I put the brand name on the page. It's got the little stupid sticker that you see. I don't know why people leave. I'm not a big, I like hats, but I know there's like people that collect hats, and like these have like a little sticker here that says like authentic snapback or something. I don't know. I take them off. But I've had this hat for over 3 years, and I wear it quite frequently. It's good shit. It holds up. I'm just working through chat here. John Santiago is asking about a chance to do an update for the VoxLab Aquila. I did not yet. Was waiting on... So now that this big firmware update's done, I can start adding new printers. The next one that we're doing an update for is the Anycubic Chiron. So if you guys are Chiron users and you're tired of that terrible fucking touchscreen, we will have a kit out very soon. We're talking like a couple of weeks ready to go and firmware to go along with it. So, and easy ABL support. That's next on my chopping block. I just had to push through that firmware update. That was so much damn work. I have heard some people told me that had the VoxLab Aquila, they followed the same instructions for converting the Ender 3 V2 LCD screen to the 12864 Creality one, and then flashed it like an Ender 3, and they said it is working. I have not tested that on mine. The only problem with that, and this is also a problem with the stock firmware, is if you got, scammed like I did. I'm just going to call it scam because it's a bait and switch. And I'm fucking tired of it. I'm tired of these Chinese companies thinking they can just switch out core shit and not get away with it. VoxLab, you took a printer that was actually fucking decent and kneecapped it by using a knockoff chip that has half the memory of the original product release, but you're still calling it the same thing. So everybody is playing Russian roulette with, do I get an STM32 with 512K, which is a good one, or do I get this knockoff Chinese bullshit chip with 256K of memory? And the problem here is they both take the same firmware, and if you're flashing firmware onto that 256K chip, when the firmware is built for a 512K chip, you are potentially writing into bad memory, which could lead to a hard lock condition where the printer could burn your house down, and I'm not even exaggerating. This happened with the Big Tree Tech SKR E3 boards that use the same family of processors. Big Tree Tech was cheaping out and using 256K chips, and as far as I know on the SKR E3 series, they are still doing it. The E3 Mini series, they're still shipping 256K chips. People were getting hard lock conditions where thermal runaway doesn't do anything because the entire firmware is locked up because they were forcing a 512K flash onto a 256K chip, and that's dangerous. So that's the big hesitation for me to recommend the Aquila, especially since they have told me they are using the same firmware on all of them, and the tech support people have no idea what I'm talking about with the two different chips, despite there being pictures and video from us and other places that got the printer early on that had the better chip. So, and if we ignore the processor thing, I think the Aquila is a nice machine, but that processor thing is an Achilles heel of that machine. And I think when we do the firmware, we're going to default to a 256K memory size. And then if you know you have a 512K, you can then uncomment a line to tell our firmware that you have the 512K chip and it's safe to add more features into the memory. So like with the SKR E3 mini series, we have to slim down the firmware a little bit, not as bad as with like the Melzi boards that's in here, but you don't have as much memory to work with. And it's absolute bullshit. I think Linus Tech Tips did a video about SSD companies do this, where the initial product that comes out, they get all the reviews out, they get all the videos out, all the YouTubers are making videos, and all the review sites are making reviews. And then after the product's been out for a little, those bastards will take the good chips that are decent quality and put some bullshit in there that's similar enough and hope the consumer doesn't notice. You're not getting that past me. I don't give a shit if the reason you're changing them out is because of supply issues. You should let the customers know, regardless of the issue that is causing you to change the processors out. So there we go. We got a rant midstream. I fucking hate this shit. I am looking, chat jumped, sorry. All right, we're back. I have a mustache. Oh my God. We were talking about the Aquila. There we go. Sean was asking me, we have to, if somebody needs something ordered for the shop, like parts or stuff that we don't carry, usually it's like wire and shit that we don't stock. They have to create a task for me, because if I'm just out there in the shop checking out on things and someone's like, oh yeah, I could really use this, I'm not going to remember. And guess what? No one made me a task to order 14 gauge silicone wire for the Ender 2 beds. And Sean pinged me, was like, hey, did that wire come in? I was like, it never got ordered because no one made a task. I know myself, so I tell everybody, if you need something, make me a task, assign it to me. If you guys got sketchy YouTube names, you're getting hidden from the channel, because we are finally getting trolls. I don't say finally like I'm looking forward to it, but we are getting trolls. So if you got a sketchy ass name, we're removing you. I'm not playing around. Let's see here. But John, in terms of the VoxLab Aquila, we will be doing stuff for it. There's just gonna be a lot of asterisks and disclaimers, and yeah. So MacGyver's talking about GST 3D filament. I bought their filament and printed it. They claim made in the US, but like he said here, 7 rolls say made in the US, 3 say made in Argentina and in different packaging. Yeah, they're it's probably bullshit. I'm not gonna say they are bullshit, but the quality of it was really bad. I had 4 rolls from them, because everybody in our Discord server was like, oh, check this out, they're so cheap. The rolls were brittle. They're black. Like, if you really want to see where they're cutting corners, they're black filament. If you held it up to the light, so I took a part and held it up to a light that I printed, you could see the light coming through the black filament. Now, if I take coax and put it up to the light, it doesn't come through. And what that means is they're cutting costs by using a fraction of the amount of dye, just enough so it looks black, you know, or whatever color, but it's still not strong enough. I don't know if that's the right word, but if you have a black filament, unless it's translucent black, if I have a black filament, I expect it to block the light almost completely. So, oh, neutrality says the titanium heat break for the Crowley machines is 23 millimeters long in the long dimension. Thank you. I will double check that. I figured it was somewhere around there, because remember I said I'm pretty sure it's 5 millimeters shorter, and the stock one, the stock heat break was 27. So, where did I get the shirt from I need one? I think Samantha got this for me. This is not one of our shirts. I thought about cloning it. But I haven't had time to. We do have a Clipper channel in our Discord now. There was enough Clipper chatter, because, you know, you need help from other people because it's so complicated to use, that we created a separate Clipper channel. So, yeah, you guys can keep your Clipper discussion in the Clipper channel, so you're not clogging everything else up. Rising Phoenix says, my Ender 5 Pro resets its E-steps every time power is turned off. When I say store settings EEPROM, it says not. I would update your firmware to our firmware, because our firmware has working EEPROM support. As far as I recall, the stock Ender 5 firmware and some other firmwares that Creality put out do not have working EEPROM support. I can guarantee you that ours does have working EEPROM support, and it stores it into the processor memory, not an SD card. A lot of Creality stock firmware, even the Ender 6 for some godforsaken reason, stores the EEPROM to an EEPROM.dat file on the SD card. This is a printer came out recently. Marlin has had support for those processors that are on that board for EEPROM emulation in the program memory section of the processor. Why they haven't enabled it, I have no fucking idea. So, Clipper is a great way to break a perfectly working machine. That is, I would agree with that. Don't get me wrong, Clipper's a cool idea, but if you're somebody that actually wants your printer to run and you don't want to be tinkering with your printer or fighting with your printer, I would recommend you don't venture into Clipper. Yeah, so let's see. I'm really surprised that we're not getting as many people watching in the later. I was expecting us to be breaking triple digits, but I feel like we're getting about the same amount of viewers at 6 p.m. as we did earlier, but I kind of like the later times. Anyways, so Chiron, woohoo. Yeah, I know you're itching for that RAM. Well, now that the firmware is done, our firmware update is done, I can start adding new machines. So, Steve Cruz, how to check which board is on the Vox side of Aquila? Look at the processor. If it says RET6 on it and it's got an STM32 logo, that's the one you want. If it says RCT6 and it just says GD, the part number starts with GD and not STM, you got the knockoff, which is what I have. You know, like I said, the knockoff may work, and that's fine and dandy for a cheap printer, but don't change a core part and create a potentially dangerous situation for your customers, because you're either, I'm gonna say they're probably doing it to cut costs. Because those same processors that came with the original ones, Creality's using them, and Creality still is making boards with them, even despite all their silicon shortages. So, just ordered some Mythic Melon Maw. Yeah, I love the Mythic Melon. I think the only one I don't have in here is the Blue Raspberry, because that's my least favorite one. But the Blue Raspberry's in the house, because Samantha will have it. But I've got some Jungleberry. I've got the R.I.P. Harambe. This is my second one I've had. I haven't opened that one yet. But if you can tell, my favorite is the melon. There's also one of these in the shop. I got those guys hooked on it too. Caffeinated employees are productive employees. And then I also have the green growl here, which is what I drank tonight. This is probably my second favorite one, because I like apple. But I don't dislike any of their flavors. I just have preferences. If I had to rate them, it would go Mythic Melon, Green Growl, the Jungleberry, R.I.P. Harambe, and then the I can't remember what their blue one's called, but there's a blue one. So, all right. RAM design, yeah, if you want, just ping me in our Discord server. I know you're a Cult of TH3D member. It shows you are. I think you are. I know you're a channel member, but if you're a Cult of TH3D member, ping me in our Discord server. There is there's a channel in Discord just for Cult of TH3D, and that's where you can ping me directly. There's quite a few people in there. And I'm thinking we're going to do a little hangout this weekend if any of the Cult of TH3D people are down. So, let's see. Oh, there we go. Chat jumped. Brandon, I'm here to see the trolling. Oh, Brandon, I should have never told you that we have a YouTube channel. Still waiting on you to do firmware for the new ANETs. I think those will be the next ones we tackle, and if they will need these to program the bootloader. So the new ANETs will need a new bootloader. But the thing is, because I'm now intimately familiar with these ARM chips and how to write bootloaders for them, I'm going to get a bootloader working on the ANET ET4 and 5 that you flash this, and then you can update your firmware that I will be putting out over the SD card. Because right now, all the ANET guides tell you have to use this programmer every single time. And we have those on our site. They're called the 8-net bootloader flashing tool. So if you're following existing guides out there for putting Marlin on there, you need something like that. It's like $10. It's really cheap. But yeah, my plan is the Chiron, and then I want to start playing with the ANETs and get one of those on my bench here, and then get the SVO3 back on the bench here and start getting firmware for that, because the SVO3 will not take me too long to do firmware for. So I gotta prioritize. I have a whole bunch of printers sitting in there, but the Chiron is the next one. So what do I use? What do I use to design your 3D parts? We use Fusion 360 here. So, do I have anything printed in the Coax Amethyst? I do not have... Oh, the Ice Amethyst. Yeah, I do, but here's the thing. It doesn't show off on the camera well. I'll show you. I actually have... It's one of my favorite colors. It kind of shifts color. It's like this purple that has like a like a silver look to it, and as you rotate what you printed, it kind of shifts between like a silver and a purple. But you're probably not gonna be able to see it on the camera. But I have a part. I've got a rocket I printed with it. Right here. So I don't know how well this is gonna show up, but like I guess it kind of shows up. It looks way better. It's one of those filaments where it looks way better in person than it does on camera. So maybe, you can kind of see it. Do you see how it like shifts? I guess it's better when the lights are low, because I was showing this off on this Twitch stream the other day. I think this is probably one of my favorite colors for them. It just looks cool. Like, and this is not any special additives or anything. This is just how the color looks. So, I think I'm going to print like a sample print, maybe a Cali dog, in each of their colors, and then post those on the product pages. I think that would be helpful. Would just take a little while to do that. I have all the colors we sell in my office here in my little collection. And look at that, my shock mount. You know, I tried, this is a third-party one. I've tried the Blue Yeti one, like the actual official one. They never last. Mother. Why are you breaking on me, bro? Yeah, the elastic's already freaking stretched out. I guess if I just get new elastic. Guess that's where they cut the corners on that product. But we are over on time, so I'm gonna see if there's any questions from our YouTube members and see if there's any quick ones. Then we're gonna wrap this up. Let's see here. When are we going to do the video on the massive hot end model? That has been shelved. I basically, if you guys see, it's right there. It ended up just being kind of a prop for when people ask about hot ends. I would like to make a video, but it's honestly low on the priority list among all the other stuff going on here. What time for the hangout? It would probably be in the afternoon for the Cult of TH3D stuff. So, like 3 or 4. I don't know. Post in the, if you're a Cult of TH3D member, post in the Cult of TH3D channel on Discord and let me know when you guys are available. I'm on CST time, so. Nightcrawler, does SVO3 stock board need a bootloader? As far as I know, no, it comes with one. Oh, Jim, Upstate New York says, I currently have the MKS Gen L V1.0. Oh, so he's got 3 different boards, a SK 3 Mini and a Acrylic 427. To use for my Tronxy rebuild, what board would you use? I would probably use the MKS Gen... not the... Is that a Gen L or an S Gen L? I'd probably go with the Creality one over the SKR because, I mean, the SKR one has a little more features, but it's less memory. So here's the thing with the Creality 427. If the Creality 427 had the drivers in UART mode, it would be super easy to recommend it over all these other Chinese boards that fit that form factor. But it doesn't. But its redeeming factor is it has a 512K of memory on it, whereas the SKR E3 Mini only has 256K. So I would probably go with the Creality 427, and in terms of a firmware that's pre-built for Core XY that you can just tweak, you're probably out of luck on that one. You're gonna have to download Marlin and get your hands dirty. But there's always our TH3D Discord server, and I'll just plug that right now. But you know, remember I said you guys can theoretically put any board in any printer. It's how much work do you want to do on the firmware side of things. But once you do it a couple of times, once you've gone through and, you know, suffered through manual setup of Marlin, it gets easier the more you do it. And then you can join me in the frustration when they do a new release and all the variable names change and you have to update all your configs all over again. So, Zolan, stop asking questions about unicorns. I do not eat unicorns, and those are mythical creatures. Let's see. I think that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. I feel like, this time works better for me later in the day after everybody's gone. It works better for me. And then if I want to have an alcoholic beverage, I don't feel like an alcoholic because then it's after 5. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think that'll wrap this up. Make sure you guys check out our website at th3dstudio.com. If you want to buy some awesome upgrades, go to th3dstore.com. Our main website has a link to the store. But, check it out. Let me know. And make sure if you guys are looking for some awesome filament that's made right here in the U.S. up in Cheeseland behind the Cheddar Curtain in Wisconsin, we now carry coax, and it's my favorite brand. That's why we started carrying it, because we've been using it for like 3 years and I love their filament. Big booty frogs and coax. I totally thought about doing that. How funny would that be? But anyways, I hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys had fun. And I'll see you guys on the Discord server. And as always, happy printing. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend.